Okay, so I had to to cut the previous video a little short because the cat got and attacked my microphone. Um, okay, so I want to show you real quick before we move on to the last part. Since we added the shadows on those lights before, and they are mixed lights, or I mean, even real time would work too. See the shadows as I'm getting next to it will change based off my position on this. So you can change that as you can always tweak. I do recommend though that you keep your intensity for your lights between 0 and 2. If you go any more than that, you're going to start to get this weird. It's almost like light inflation, like where the only way that you can make one thing have an effect is to keep cranking values up and up. Just try to keep your intensities low if you can, and work off of that. So the last section that I want to talk about is the light settings. And there's a few things here. I've already mentioned the auto generate button down here at the bottom that we've enabled. Some of you, if you've been having trouble so far keeping up with the auto generate, you can actually turn down this light map resolution. I think I previously turned it down to 10. It might default upwards of 40. But keep it low. 10 usually works pretty well for me. You can crank it, I think, before you save out your final build and you really want to do a proper bake, you can crank this up to higher, like 40 or something, and then you'll see it'll do some recalculating and it'll take a lot longer. For preview purposes, 10 is fine. And I like to keep it lower as I'm working, and then just before you go off on your lunch break, you can bump that back up to a higher value. So this light map resolution is one thing to pay attention to. Another thing, we'll talk about the skybox in another video. Ensure that your lighting mode is on shadow mask. Sometimes mine will default to something different, and I don't know why. But shadow mask is the one you want. Yeah, I mean, and then lastly, this intensity multiplier, you can have this. If you just want to make everything a little brighter or everything a little darker, you can affect this one way or another. Otherwise, you can just keep it as default and it's fine. I think it's default at 1, but I'll turn mine down just a little bit. Let me look through here. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about here, the skybox material, it's to the default skybox. To make something a little bit more interesting, we're going to create our own procedural skybox. And to do that, hold on, my machine's bogging down a little bit because it's lighting. Okay, my mouse, all right. I'm gonna make a new skybox material. And if you do create material, I'm gonna call this Castle Skybox. And in my Castle Skybox, up here, I'm going to change the shader to Skybox Procedural. So once you have this, you can actually create your own Skybox just through dragging through the settings. Maybe I want the sky tint to be, something like that. I want the ground to be something like that. Maybe we'll go a little swampier. And you can change all this stuff, but ultimately, once I finish this, I want to reassign this inside of the skybox material, like so. And you'll see it will change the ambient of lighting effect of all my other lights. And I actually don't like how green this major light is, so I'm gonna bump that back a little bit. Okay, cool. Let me see, what else? Also, just to make the player stick out a little bit more, I'm going to reassign there. Okay, cool. So now if I move around, see I can see my shadows. I can always crank up the quality of this if I want more, but really we're just trying to get a sense for how the lighting reads. And this is a lot better than the default. And then we can add more on top of there. But we can start to use our lighting to create interesting areas where we can guide them to a certain spot to learn more about a mechanic or to find a collectible. We can start to use lighting to draw the player in different directions, and that's pretty cool.